What happens when somebody not only can engineer the perfect chocolate chip cookie, and I'm talking about different types of flour, but also can set records in sales? These are not the same types of brains. Today's guest is Ryan Peppers, and I'm going to let him kind of tell you all a little bit about him. Welcome, Ryan.
Hey T, thanks for the intro. Love that you dropped that. I like to make cookies in my spare time. That's
No,
a
we,
good
we
one.
will definitely have to talk about the chocolate chip cookie thing because that was the moment in knowing you where I went, oh my gosh, this man is just, I mean, we joke about it, but I say engineer brain in a sales, like a sales pro is so unusual. It actually represents less than 3% of people. So not technically a unicorn, but pretty freaking close.
Hey, I'll take what I can get, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I mean, I I've always loved trying to, you're never going to find perfection, but just really digging in, finding out how you can get the closest you can to it, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, like you said, I've been in sales since I was really 16, right? Worked at a golf course, would sell clubs and, all that kind of stuff. But really, sales started when I was 18. And I was working at Home Depot, and somebody was walking around selling cabinet refacing, and they said, "Hey, I think you'd be great at this." And the rest is history, right? It's 16, 17 years later, still grinding in the business and loving it. So
It's the way that you bring the engineer mindset to things. Like if we were to visit with your friends or with your wife and said, "Tell us about Ryan," what would they say?
yeah, pretty much that. He digs into everything. He knows everything about everything. The way that my brain works, I wouldn't say that I have a photographic memory in the sense that I can read a piece of paper and know all of it, right? But if I'm interested in something even a little bit, I mean, I remember conversations from when I was 7 years old and in extreme detail. So I've always been a studier or researcher, figuring out the intricacies of it, where the differences are made. So
Yeah.
that's been a big part of who I am, and I've learned to embrace it as I've gotten older. Sometimes it was always I dig too far into something, get into the weeds, and then you never take action on it or do anything about it.
Mm.
But refining that skill as I've gotten older has been very, very helpful.
Well, that's interesting you say it that way because that's what I was about to ask based on what you were saying is how do you think that level of research and detail and analytics, if you will, how do you think that served you well? And where do you think it maybe has been a challenge? And it sounds like you just shared the challenge one. You might have gotten yourself to analysis paralysis in the past.
I have an ability in a very, very short period of time to take information in and remember it and utilize it, right?
Mhm.
It's and again, I used to think it was obsession, and maybe that is the superpower, right? Is I can obsess over something in a very short period of time and learn everything that there is to know about it, and then be able to parse through and dig into it, right? Um, you know, one of my favorite people in the entire world, right? Jim Rohn. He says, right, philosophy is the sum total of all that you know and what you decide is important, right? So I think the superpower for the engineer mind is the sum total of all that you know. Being able to take all of that kind of stuff, right? Before it would just be clouding. Now I can understand how to implement certain aspects of it. But taking the information in and having it, you got to know, right? That's what he said. You
Yeah.
got to know. So uh, yeah, that's been a huge benefit for me.
Now, I love that you went to Jim because that was going to be my question. What was it about Jim Rohn that really reached you? I mean, granted, now I'm aging you a little bit. When we've talked about this before, you would just listen to his talks on cassette tape over and over, right? So, what was it about Jim that really grabbed you?
That's an interesting story. I mean, you know, I Jim's more special than just the content of his information to me. It was like I, I got my engineer brain from my dad for sure, right? I mean, he's very mechanical, owned car dealerships, worked on cars, did all that kind of stuff, but also extremely blue collar in his thinking. Extremely. My whole family, extremely blue collar. And when I was growing up, I just thought you had to be what you are, right? You just are what you are. And surprisingly enough, network marketing, MLM, pyramid, whatever, that's where I started learning about that kind of stuff. Somebody came up to me. I was like, this is super cool. I was late teenager, early 20s. And I go, oh, this is awesome, right?
Mhm.
And so I joined this company and I went to one of their, quarterly events, and everybody on the stage is talking about bettering yourself and Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and this and that. And one of the people on the stage said, yeah, there's this audio program from Jim Rohn changing my life, Challenge to Succeed, right?
Mhm.
I go, okay, cool, I got to get that, right? And so I went and I got it. It's 3.5 hours, some afternoon in the early 90s with Jim Rohn that, I mean, I had to have listened to it in a 3-year period at least 100 times end to end. And
Mhm.
just working out, listening to it. I'm in the car, I'm listening to it. There's just something about the way that he takes what most of the industry makes into like complex concepts,
Mhm.
simplifies them down to the easiest. I mean, his biggest initiative was like, I want to reach high school kids and teach them about personal development. And so it's just the simplicity of it, the concepts, the things like that. I mean, it's been the bedrock of everything that I've learned in a personal development standpoint, right?
Yeah.
He led me to Jesus too. I mean, his thing was always, ask for God's help. Like, it's there's too much that, or there's 66 books right there. You got a Bible, right? You're on your way to learning, right? So it's I cannot. I mean, I've learned a lot of things from a lot of different people, and I've taken little nuggets along the way. But I mean, that's the cornerstone of understanding that you don't have to be where you are. You're not a tree. You're not stuck and rooted in the ground. You can grow. You can change. You can improve. You can get better every day. Um, yeah, I mean, I can't say it enough. Jim Rohn has made more of an impact on my life than it's hard to think of other people.
How do you think that's influenced how you parent or how you lead others, right? Because clearly you lead sales teams as well.
Hmm. I mean, the simplicity of it, right? I don't want to say the simplest route is always the best, but you should always be trying to simplify it, right?
Mhm.
Not a lot of things need to be as complex as people make them, and myself included. Again, some of the having to learn how to manage the engineer brain, as you call it, is you like complexity, right? Naturally, but being able to take something complex and make it simple for other people, easy to understand, easy to take in, easy to implement, and I mean that's been a huge help, right? It's when you make things hard for people and you make things just to pump your own ego and say, hey, I know all this stuff, right? It's not the quickest path to success.
It's it's not attractive either at that point, right?
Yeah.
Okay, just for fun at the moment, because I know you know it off the top of your head. The in your chocolate chip cookie recipe, don't want you to give the whole thing away.
Okay.
We need to freaking patent it at this point. However,
Oh,
what
all
was
right.
it you figured out? Just share the flour piece. How about that? Because there's more to it than just the flour piece.
Yeah, yeah. Bread flour, cake flour, and AP flour, mainly bread flour, but it's, the bread flour gives it some density. The cake flour is, a little bit lighter. It's, yeah, 3 different types of sugar too: light brown, dark brown, and granulated. Like there's a lot of stuff. The secret though, the secret is espresso powder. It brings out the chocolate flavor. They play really well
Um,
together. But
and
yeah,
what led you to want to perfect the chocolate chip cookie?
it's. I mean, I've done the same. You've come over before, and I've made brisket. I did the same thing with brisket. I've done the same thing with a lot of things. Food was where I started, right? I just really liked cooking, and
Mhm.
surprisingly, haven't done it as much as I'd like lately. But it's one of those things that it's the little things that matter, right?
Mhm.
It's the little, and I tell my wife this all the time when she's like, hey, how can I make this dish better? Like, It's layering things in. It's every piece. She used to make fun of me all the time. She's like, "Why do you need to buy an $8 block of cheese? Why don't you just get this bag shredded cheese?" It's like it's every little the sum total of all of its parts, right? You skimp on one little thing, you don't do something right, it doesn't the finished product isn't as good as it can be. So with cookies, it was just one of those things where I'm like, I'm gonna make some chocolate chip cookies. I was like, these could be way better. And then it started an 8-month process, 30, 40 batches of cookies, an Excel spreadsheet. Like it was like that. So there's been quite a few things like that in my life, right? I've been like that with fishing. Um, it just yeah, there's been quite a few things like that where I get really, really hyper focused. Again, it's an obsession, right? You get to a point where it's obsessive. I can obsess over something for a short period of time and then I got it, right?
Mhm.
And then I can implement without it being the primary factor that's taking over my brain, right?
For most people who have that sort of wiring, they will get themselves stuck in inaction because I have to know a little bit more and I have to know a little bit more. And, people joke and say it's analysis paralysis. It's really a thing, though. You mentioned earlier that when you were younger, you had to figure out sort of a stopping point. You had to create for yourself some sort of a ceiling that then required you to go do something. So for those watching, because clearly I've got grown adults I'll talk to, they're like, well, that's just I can't make decisions. I overthink everything. Then change that, right?
Hmm.
Like, not that you're gonna not overthink, but what was it? How did you put that line in the sand so you didn't end up just becoming a product of that ruminating and learning and figuring things out to actually getting traction and taking action?
Frankly, it took me longer than I care to admit. I mean, it's one of those, especially somebody that's a thinker by nature. It's very, very difficult to translate that into action, right? Because you feel like you need to know everything. I need to know everything. I need to know everything. I need to visualize every different turnout. I need to think about it like playing a game of chess, right? If I move my bishop here, what's the rook going to do here? Blah, 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 blah. But what if they accidentally take with this, which isn't the right move, but they could do it, right? Well,
Yeah.
eventually you got to move the piece. Your timer's going to run out, right? And it took me a very, very long time to realize that just getting something going is a lot better, even if it's not even close to perfect, even if it sucks. Just taking action on something and throwing something out there gives you a starting point to iterate on, right? Then you can let the brain go and the studying go and all that kind of stuff because now you have a feedback loop started. If you
Mhm.
don't get that feedback loop started, you're just theorizing. You're just a philosopher, right? And I mean, it was probably, I told you I got into personal development and everybody talks about that. You got to take action, got to take action, got to
Right.
take action, blah, 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 right? You hear it all the time. Even, again, taking it back to Jim Rohn, right? One of the fourth piece to the life puzzle is action. Talks about the early disciples and the book of Acts, one of the best books in the Bible because it's the activities of the, early Christians and what started the church that we know today, right? It's if they wouldn't have done that, they wouldn't have got there. I heard all that. I heard that on repeat again. I listened to that 100 times in a couple of years, right? And it still didn't sink in, right? It is another really, really good thing that I learned. It's and I'm sure a good amount of people know it, but there's 4 stages to learning, right? Unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, unconscious competence, right? You don't if you've never tied a shoe before, you don't know that you don't know how to tie it. Then you try and tie it, you realize I don't know how to do this. Then you realize how to do it and you learn how to do it and you got to think it through, think it through, think it through, think it through. And then finally, I mean, I could have a conversation, I could do whatever, I could tie my shoes without looking at it. I mean, everybody, for the most part, that's an adult can.
Right.
But to me, I mean, that's what it had to be for me, right? I knew that I wasn't doing it and I need to study more. I don't feel like I'm ready. And I think it was just getting slapped in the face with the responsibilities of life, right? And being, mid 20s and realizing like I feel in my mind that I'm a lot further along than
Mhm.
I am, right? I'm married at this point. Am I living up to what I should be living up to? And you just sometimes you have those paradigm shifts, and it's usually just bad scenarios, right? I was in debt. I was just, what am I doing? Right. And realizing that, hey, I gotta get some stuff going. And once that happened, it made sense because you do something and you realize, okay, like I was saying earlier, that feedback loop.
Right.
Oh, I'm getting feedback from something that I did. Now I can try and improve this. And then you go, oh, it's not as bad as I had made it out in my head, right? I wasn't even close to being right here, but I'm way further along now than I was. So again, a long way to say, like, there's nothing that you can do to make something better thinking about it, right? Get information, make an educated decision, but even if it sucks, take action on it, and then just get 1% better at it every day. And by the end of 100 days with compounding interest, you're a lot better than 100% better.
I teach the 4 levels of learning, and I do them as stair steps, right? Like you're
Yeah.
going upstairs. And when I learned about it in NLP in my coaching journey, because that conscious and incompetent, so that second stair, right? So you got that, you said it yourself. You've got unconscious and incompetent. We didn't make up the words, people. It's psychology did. Okay.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know, and who cares? That's just everyday life. Then, like you use tying the shoes. For a
Mm-hmm.
baby, I always like to use handing them a fork for the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now they're aware that there's something that they need to be able to do and they don't know how to do it. And because as humans, that's so uncomfortable, it triggers the fight or flight brain. And most humans don't like to be uncomfortable, that conscious incompetent, right? 96% of humans will retreat back to unconscious and incompetent rather than put in the reps, right? Because the only way you move beyond that stair to stair 3, which means I have to, I'm aware of it. I can do it though. I'm competent. I just have to think about it, is through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's everything in life. And we see it with adults, right? We see it with adults. If somebody works at a company more than a year, by that second year, based on inflation, they've taken a pay cut
Mm-hmm.
because that's 6 to 8%. So unless they're getting merit increases or salary increases at a rate of 6 to 8% currently, it's a pay cut. So the only way they can keep their lifestyle is to work more hours, unless they go get new skills, right? And new skills, really only about 4% of people will push through
Mm-hmm.
because it's not life or death. So they're like, I'm good. I'm just going to go back to the way things were and I'll work an extra 10 hours a week. No big deal.
Yeah. It's again, I mean, you're probably going to hear this a lot over this call, but it's harken back to Jim Rohn, right? I mean, ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is devastation, right? You got to know, you got to understand. You can't just put your head in the sand, right? The other thing is skills makes labor more valuable, right? You don't get paid by the hour, you get paid by the value that you bring to that hour, right? So if you want to get paid more, you need to be more valuable, right? To the marketplace specifically.
Yeah.
Does what your skills does that create more money for the marketplace, for your company, for your industry, whatever the case is, right? People are always waiting for a raise. It's like then just it's easy, right? I think that's probably why I love sales and just things in that nature, right? It's if I want to make more money, I go sell another deal. If I want to do, I go do some, I
Yeah.
control my if I want to be a slouch for a week, my paycheck's going to reflect it. If I want to grind 20 hours a day, my paycheck's going to reflect it, right? So I've always loved production based, right? Because it means, hey, look, it's up to me. I don't have to rely on somebody else. If I go and I work a
Right.
really really tough week, man, I would hate to get paid the same as if I slacked off the same week, right? It doesn't motivate people to grow.
No. Now earlier you mentioned you could still recall a conversation from when you were 7 pretty vividly. When did you realize you were someone who naturally studies systems?
Hmm. Consciously,
Mhm.
uh, I don't know, 5 years ago maybe.
Okay.
More recent than you'd think. Um,
For sure. I was definitely not thinking you were going to say 5 years ago.
it was, it was just something that kind of you are, right? And you
Yeah.
do. And, forest through the trees, right? It's, you just do what you do sometimes. And sometimes it's, we were just talking about this earlier, right? It's, do you think about what you think about, right? And I don't think I used to do that at a high level until recently. And I didn't, sometimes you just got to have that sobering experience with yourself and just realize, like, dig in and go, who am I? Right? Like, who am I at a core level, and how do I use that to be a good human, to produce, to make money, to do whatever the case is, right? And yeah, it took me a long time to realize that. I knew that I had a really good memory. I knew that I had an extremely good memory, but I didn't realize it, like what you're talking about and like
Yeah.
the question that you asked, until more recent than you'd think.
So what was that moment? What was the epiphany?
I don't think that was one of those paradigm shift moments. I think that was one of those things that I was just doing a lot of introspection. How do I get better? How do I improve? Right? Same thing I've gone through. You go through it every couple of years, right? Or it's becoming more frequent now. It's like, hey, okay, I have this vision for where I want to be, where I'm supposed to be, that I have in my head. I'm not there yet. What's the difference, right? How do I get better? What areas do I need to get better? Where do I need to improve? Things like that, right? Where am I at, right? You need to, it's just like a map. You need to know where you are if you're going to get to where you're going, right? So, and just realizing that is just, you look at some of that stuff as it just is what it is, but realizing that everybody's got a superpower, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think, like you said, I immediately defaulted to, how is that uh, a roadblock instead of something that I can build on, and realize, like, I have this skill that can grow and support me, right? And then I've just built on that from then, right? How do I take what I'm naturally good at and my God-given abilities
Yeah.
and refine them even more, right? I think most people focus on their weaknesses, which is probably good. You want to minimize those, or at least be aware of those. But I don't think enough people take their strengths, where they're better than other people at something, and refine it to be what it can be.
I agree with that. The every day I, when I'm coaching people and they get so focused in on trying to get better at something that they don't even like doing, that they've abandoned the thing that they're really good at and that's going to get them the outcome. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that tends to be the general default?
Would just be a theory, right?
Mhm.
My thought on it is, people look at themselves more negatively than they should, right? And they think, what I am is not good enough, so I need to be something else. Not, we all have good and bad qualities, right? And it's just the way that it is. I think it's you'd be we live in a negative world, right? And it's the way that it is, right? If it bleeds, it leads, right? It's a shooting here, a fire burns down this, that, the other thing, to play on people's fear response, so they can stick a Colgate toothpaste commercial in the middle of it and support their business model. You don't have to look very far to find negativity. So the way that people look at themselves is usually pretty negative. So when you're constantly thinking down upon yourself, getting negative self-talk, all this kind of stuff, but you want to do something different, right? I don't think anybody wants to stay there, or at least the majority of people don't want to stay there. So they think, I need to change everything about myself. So they're trying to fit the square peg into the round hole, right? That would be my theory on it. And I had a bit of that, right? We talk about Jim Rohn a lot. There's another book that I read at least once a year. It's by Dr. Shad Hemstetler, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. I mean, absolutely, because it's, again, we live in a negative world. You need to reiterate, like, what 70% of the conversations that you have are between you and you, right? We're telling ourselves all the time, it's the waitress that drops a plate of food and says, I'm so clumsy. It's just you're reprogramming your mind to continue to do stuff like that. Oh, okay, that's the information that's going in. Cool. I'm going to make sure that we do more clumsy things, right? So I would say that's what it is, right? And they're not, again, if you're not where you want to be, then you're doing something wrong, right? We all know that. But it doesn't mean throw the baby out with the bathwater and completely become an entirely different person.
No, whenever you said, because it's true, right? Like when you were talking about the waitress says, I'm just clumsy. So now what she does, part of her identity is clumsy. How do you think those sort of elements and putting that out in the world do create their sort of subconscious beliefs or identity?
Well, I mean, we all know the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind. I don't think people realize how powerful that can be, right? And I mean, we've heard of books like The Secret or things like that, and I think you can get a little far in that. I mean, really, the Bible, there's a lot of that stuff too, right? It's your words are powerful, right? I mean, anytime Jesus did anything, right, he used words to make it so, right? So let there be light, right? It's like it's very, very powerful to understand how that programs your mind, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it like a computer, you have to give a computer a command to do something, right? So if you're constantly telling yourself, I can't do this, I'm that, right? Then it's programming your subconscious mind to make that so in other parts of your life, right? So you really got to be you got to protect your mind and your tongue, right? There's another book, Hung by the Tongue, same kind of thing, right? Like, and that's a very biblical take on it as well. I mean, you can completely rewire. Now, again, action sets it in. Action makes it real, but you need to visualize and see yourself where you want to go, what you want to do, and you need to affirm that to yourself. Again, nothing happens without action. You can't just sit there and talk to yourself and things happen. But again, you start programming your subconscious mind that I go to the gym every day. I'm in great shape. I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. Eventually you're going to pass on the cake. You're going to wake up and be like, man, I should be at the gym right now, right? And it's going to affect the way that you think about what you're trying to do.
What do you think was the biggest self-driven? I'm just clearly I'm off script with the questions in case that's not Captain
That's the
Obvious.
best place to be. Come on, T.
I know. I'm just like, when you think about the different affirmations that you were telling yourself in a positive way, what do you think had the greatest impact and rippled maybe throughout your business life, your personal life? What was the belief that you anchored into through your own self-talk?
I think there's two things there.
Okay.
Uh, One, I think the biggest aha from reading that book for the first time, again, what to say when you talk to yourself, was
Mhm.
how many negative things I was telling myself. And I just didn't even realize it. I mean, he's got a section in that book that's probably 6 pages of just random negative things that people tell themselves. I'm like, man, I'm hitting 70% of these, and
Wow.
I could pass this test, right?
Not
And
one you want to pass, but yeah,
no, absolutely not. But again, those are those paradigm shift moments, those wake you
yeah,
up moments that change stuff. And I think the biggest thing that I got from that was eliminating the negative things you're telling yourself, right? And realizing and catching yourself in the moment of saying them, right? As far as positive, I think that harkens back to looking at some of the ways that I was naturally as a negative thing instead of a positive thing, right? And like you said, I mean, I'm happy to call it an obsession the way that my mind works, right? I can dig into something and figure something out in you know days, not years, that it takes people, and
yeah.
that's a real blessing. And I treated it for a long, long time like it was man, I'm weird. Why am I getting too into this kind of stuff? Like, why am I so? And people would make fun of me for it, and I'd make fun of myself for it, and then realizing that I'm telling myself that a big blessing is a negative thing is not serving me in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. How do you think that level of digging in and obsessing when you get anchored in on a topic, a thing, right? How do you think that that has served in being a father or as a husband? Because it is a very strong attribute. I would definitely not. It's a superpower for sure.
That's interesting. It's funny because the way that you introduced this me on this call was blending the IQ, EQ, and being good at sales while having an engineer brain. I feel like I have to turn my engineer brain off to be a good husband and a father, and it's a lot more EQ than IQ, right? Yeah, there's thinking about it, there's reading about stuff, there's an element of it, but it's heavily weighted on the EQ side, right? How do people feel, right? How is I can logically tell you the solution here. Like, this doesn't make sense logically. Why are you doing it this way? In any relationship, very most relationships, that's not the ideal path to success, right?
Yeah.
It's relating to somebody, it's empathizing with somebody, it's understanding their perspective and not just looking at your perception. My perception is I can logic my way through this. Oh yeah, I know the solution here. But is that what people want to hear when they're feeling a certain way? Not really, right? I think that relationships is a much higher, how do I see something from their perspective, right? And how do we find a solution together, especially with marriage, right? It's, I think, the most important, and probably why we have such a good marriage is both of us understand the goal that we're trying to go to, and any fight or disagreement or anything that we have is constructive. How do we get to a place where we can both live together in harmony instead of, this is we're both immovable objects, right? Because again, you have logic, right? My wife has logic, I have logic, we think that the situation should be this. You're not going to get anywhere, you're just going to push apart, right?
Now, you and Chelsea, of course, your wife, you are very uh, like the things that you eat, the things that you have in your environment. Um, I know when it comes to any treats, if you will, for the kids, it's stuff that you all make from scratch. What led you all to sort of parent and lead your lives that way? Because it's very holistic is probably the best word I can come up with. You would have a better one. But share with everyone a little bit about how you two choose to be a family, raise your kids, and how you got there.
Yeah, holistic's probably a pretty good word, right? Natural. We don't, not, there's so much junk in the food that we eat, and the environment, and plastics and aerosols and all that kind of stuff. And I think I had a lot of health issues in my 20s, which is seems early, right? And it just led me down another path again, research brain, trying to figure it out. Like, I can't, there's no way I should feel like this 25, 26 years old, right? Thyroid problems, hormone problems, things like that. Just started cutting things out, figuring out more about that. I mean, there was a point in my life where I was a trainer. I used to manage gyms. That was early 20s. And so I had a pretty good backbone, but that was in the bodybuilding side of things, where it's, chicken and rice and broccoli and, whatever, right? It was
Yeah.
aesthetics, it wasn't health. And, it really set in. I was about 30. Chelsea's pregnant with our first, and just like, I mean, I was like 240 pounds, like felt terrible pretty much every day. I'm like, this is, I can't do this. What, am I not going to be able to play with my kid when they're 5? Like, this sucks. So then it's just, yeah, go into a hole, read a bunch of studies, figure it out. And then you just realize how many things are out there that are just horribly toxic for your body. Just horribly. And I think if your body and your mind are getting dragged down by these things, it doesn't matter any of the stuff that we've talked about already. It helps. And I mean, affirmations to get better help a lot. But when you're constantly getting beat up by your health, I mean that it's very, very difficult to grit through it, right? And really it's not going to allow you to do the things that you want to do with your life. So um, again, it's a full-time job. It's an absolutely a full-time job not to get poisoned these days. So yeah, trust me, it's worth it. I mean, our kids, yeah, you're right. It's like they're like, can we have a treat? It's like mango. You know, like
Yeah.
so no, and I mean they're happy, they're healthy, we're in a good spot. Like I tell anybody that'll listen, right?
Yeah.
That what they want to cut out. But that's the other thing. People don't like unsolicited advice. I had to learn that one the hard way because I love details and I love knowing about things, right? And
Mhm.
I just want to share it with people, right? It's not, and then you become the know-it-all, and they're like, okay, buddy, whatever, and it's like, all right. So that was a lesson that was hard to learn for me, right? Where it's just you don't need to share everything that you know with people.
You can share it with me all the time. The
I know.
the
I
whenever
appreciate that about you, T.
yeah, most common thing that probably everybody every single day either is eating, breathing, what have you. If you had to pick, what comes to mind that when you started researching and realizing how toxic just things are around us, what were the biggest ahas?
Here's the easiest thing I would give people. Uh, Anything that smells like something that isn't natural, get rid of it.
What do you mean?
Scented lotions, scented Glade plugins, scented candles, any of that. If it's not, just if you can smell it, it's probably bad for you, right? Unless it's essential oils or something like that. Get rid of all of those out of your house as soon as possible. When it comes to food, my litmus test is if I read the ingredients label and my great grandmother wouldn't understand what the ingredient is, I won't eat it. Right? Again, we all know that sugar's not great in high quantities, but at least it's a real thing. Right? My great grandmother would know. So
Right.
I'm less hesitant about that and instead of bicarbonate, bisodium carbonate or something, it's so again, if your great grandmother doesn't know what it is, it's probably not something you should put in your body.
Why do you think it is in the US, our food regulations are so much more lax than other countries, right? There are things Vince was sharing with me. There was I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want to get sued. There was a fast food sandwich company that was
Yeah.
trying to open in the UK, had to send their products, right, to be analyzed. And because of all the sugars and everything in their bread,
Hmm.
they would have to categorize it as a dessert,
Yeah.
not
I
certainly
know.
a
I know the
sandwich.
exact. I know the exact sandwich company you're
I'm
talking
sure
about.
you do. We're not going to
Yeah.
say the
Yeah.
name. However,
Yeah.
what
I won't. I won't. I got you.
but from your research and your position, so your opinion, why do you think it
Yeah.
is we are so far behind on that curve and continue to allow such toxic aspects into our food?
I would say it's probably two things. One, as much as I love capitalism, I mean, I am red, white, and blue to the core. I love capitalism. There is a dark side to it, right? It's a catch 22, right? How can the company be more profitable? How can we cut expenses? How can we do this, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is a lot of people are like, I need to vote for somebody different. I need to vote. I need to go cast my vote. They're so strong-willed in getting to the voting booth, and as you should be. I'm not. I don't want to take anything away from that, but people forget to vote with their dollar, right? Like, what are you buying? What are you paying for? Like, you're seeing a lot more people put tallow in things and do things the right way because that's where people want to spend their money. That those are becoming buzzwords, buying raw milk or doing things, and companies are starting to shift because that's where the money is, right? I think a lot of it is capitalism, right? And these companies want to make as much money as possible and they need to be cheaper and use seed oils instead of, natural oils, things like that. I think the other end of it is the amount of food that America eats versus other. Like we can have fruit here anytime we want throughout the year, right? I can go and get a watermelon, 12 months out of the year. A lot of countries, that's not the case. This fruit's in season, it's available. If it's not, tough luck, right? So having to do that, they have to do a lot of things to the food to make sure that we have that ability here, right? Things
Mhm.
that'll sit on the shelves, and again, a lot of mouths to feed, and in capitalism, that's my theory at least,
Well,
right?
but you're saying capitalism, it still has to get past the government, right? In other countries, the government's regulations on food don't permit it. So
I
I
didn't know
know.
this was a conspiracy podcast. All
Look
right,
at
here we
this.
go.
We are going there, Ryan.
I like it. Don't get me started with the government. I think it's one of those, highest dollar, right? Who adds money to the coffers in a lot of cases. You can look into a lot of studies where, I don't want to name drop any, but this cereal company funded this study to
Yeah,
do this, right? And then the FDA takes those studies and they go, oh, okay, cool, legitimate, right? And you can tie it back again. I love capitalism. I'd much rather have that than the alternatives, right? Any
sure.
day of the week. But you're naive to think that there isn't a downside to it and that there isn't, the other side of the coin, right? So
Yeah,
I think over time that just systems can be corrupted. People can be corrupted. And it gets to a certain point where it's a little bit at a time. It's the same thing that we're talking about earlier about 1% Better. It's another great book, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson,
hmm,
right? Little things done over time compound, or little negative things, same deal, right? You
yeah,
you don't brush your teeth for a week, it's probably going to feel a little
yeah,
weird, but your teeth aren't falling out, right?
yeah.
3 years, you're going to start looking pretty bad, right? It's the same thing. I don't think that this is an overnight thing that happened. It's decades and decades of just a little bit more corruption, a little bit more money here, a little bit more money there. And next thing you know, we're at this point where the food that's approved isn't even, I mean, it's not even real food in most cases, right? So again, I don't want to get too off onto conspiracies, but I mean, again,
Well, it's not
I
conspiracy. You've studied, and we
yeah.
see it, right? I mean, it's not like we can't see it. We can
Notice
see
how I
it.
didn't say conspiracy theory.
Yes,
Conspiracy and conspiracy theory are much different things.
so true. The another difference that comes to mind, boy, we are down a rabbit hole. This is what happens. Larissa's saying coconut oil pulling.
Yep, yep.
What is that?
Oil pulling is where you, after you're done brushing your teeth, you swish it through your mouth and pull some of the stuff out of your teeth. I mean, Chelsea makes our own toothpaste, bentonite clay, coconut oil, salt, charcoal. Like we make I mean, everything. I mean,
Yeah,
and it didn't happen overnight, right? It was one of those slowly over time kind of things like, oh, this is disgusting. Like, oh, we got to get rid of these Teflon pans, right? We got to,
yeah.
oh man, plastic cutting boards. Oh, what are we doing? Right. And then next thing you know, people come over and they're like, dude, what are you guys on?
Well, they're clearly not as informed, is what that would be.
Yeah.
The other difference, though, that comes to mind isn't just in the food, it's typical doctor's visit. If you are getting a wellness checkup, you're doing your annual wellness visit, they take your blood
Mm-hmm.
and they're looking for certain, where's your vitamin D, your B12, your cholesterol, etc. I didn't even know this was a thing until you told me.
Mm-hmm.
When there's blood tests you can go have that check your blood for lead and like what
Mm-hmm.
other things. And why is that not more normalized? I'm 50 years old and had no idea that was even a thing until you shared it with me. Yes,
I mean,
Larissa, I
again,
looked at
more of my theory, my opinion. Take that for what it's worth, right? It's follow the money, right?
yeah.
There's not money in solving the root cause. There's money in treating the symptoms. I mean, I think even people that don't know that kind of do
Mhm.
at a core level. And when, it's why would you, and then, new buzzword is peptides, right? And peptides are pretty awesome when you dig into it, some of the stuff that they're accomplishing with it, but that eliminates trillions of dollars of sick care, right? And medications that are FDA approved and prescribed regularly for people, right? Or just any of this, even if we're not talking about taking something, just eating healthy, getting the toxins out of your body, right? They like to say like, oh, parasites don't exist, or we don't have heavy metals, you don't have lead poisoning or this or that, right? I mean, parasites don't see borders. They're like, this isn't a third world country, we don't have those. I wouldn't be so sure. But I think that's the one place where I love the medical industry and advancements and things like that, is identifying the problem. I mean, they're at a point now with testing where you can see every intricacy within your body, right? And I think being able to do genetic testing like MTHFR stuff and being able to dig in, again, engineer brain, right? Is you got to know where you are to know where you're in it, to get to where you're going, right? So
Yeah.
if you can use medical advancements to identify what exactly is going on inside your body, then you can change it, right? So yeah, I mean, toxicity tests, right? You brought up lead because that was what I had an issue with. I didn't know. I've done a bunch of detoxes, liver cleanses, and colon. I mean, you name it. I've done it over the last 5 years, right? Trying to, get to a place where I didn't feel terrible every day, right?
Right.
And so I'm thinking, I'm feeling better. I'm not, I fixed my thyroid completely. That's supposed to be something you can't do, right? You're on levothyroxine for the rest of your life, right? We talked about it. I had
Right.
Hashimoto's diagnosed. I haven't been on thyroid medication for 4 years, right? Thyroid's perfect. And it's, a lot of these things that you're told are like, it has to be this way. You're going to be on this forever, is not the case, right? There's just usually your body needs to get rid of some stuff. And I think I I look at it as a blessing now that I ran into it early and
Mhm.
had to learn when my body's still in a place where it can recover and be in a good spot. But I think within the next 5 to 10 years, as the amount of toxins in our environment and our food only increase, it's going to be more prevalent for more people, right? So learning how to get them out, learning how to dig into that is I wish it was more readily available, but again, you're cutting out trillions of dollars out of an industry that doesn't want it to be cut out of.
Well, okay, you mentioned the lead, right? That
Yeah,
you had, which normal blood work and a normal doctor's visit, that wouldn't have come up.
correct.
So you go again, because people watching don't all necessarily know
Yeah,
what we're talking about. So you go get a test. It's blood work. Is it a blood work test?
yeah, blood work, urinalysis, saliva. Yeah, it was, yeah, very very in depth.
So as an example, if you don't mind me sharing, you had incredibly high
Yeah,
lead.
borderline lead toxicity. Yeah, and it's one of those things that isn't. It's usually very very hard to move. It's one of the hardest
Mhm.
things to get out of your body. So when you get a blood work or a urine test or something like that, it doesn't pop. You have to be on a specific, on a detox for a little while so you don't get false negatives, right? So I didn't get any of those labs done until a week after like a clinical strength detox. And yeah, I mean, he's like, I've never seen this level of lead in somebody before. This is crazy. I'm like, all
And
right.
what does that do to the body? Because there's
I,
probably a lot of
a
people
lot of
walking
a lot
around
of
with a lot of
things.
things that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Heavy metals are especially bad for the body because they drain your body of a lot of things that are good, B vitamins, a lot of other good metals, copper, magnesium, things like that don't have a place to bind to because the lead's there.
Mhm.
And it's just toxic all around. Your body's constantly fighting. And this is the thing, people think I have an allergy to food. I used to think, I'd eat bread, I'd feel bad. I'd eat this, gluten intolerance or whatever, what have you, right? I'd eat something, I'd feel puffy, I'd feel terrible for a couple of days. And from going down that and realizing and starting getting the lead out, you know, no pun intended, right? Uh, it it was very interesting. I didn't have any of those problems anymore because your immune system and your immune response is so close to the threshold because it's constantly trying to fight something off that it can't get out by itself. Lead is one of those extremely tough ones. Again, if you're not, people talk about molds all the time. If you're not constantly being exposed to it, your body will process molds out quickly. It's when people live in a mold environment that it can really do damage, right? Lead is not like that, right? It's, you live in a house you don't know has lead pipes, it's in your system, it stays in there forever. It hides in your bones, it hides in your fat cells, it hides everywhere, right? And it's very, very difficult to move out of your cells, right? So, you know, if your immune response is so close to the threshold, everything sets you off. Everything, even the littlest thing, right? And I had a lot of success doing a very animal-based diet, right? So, you know, red meat, eggs, things like that, cutting out a lot of vegetables and things that they, you know, because vegetables have defense chemicals in them, right? It just, it is what
Yeah.
it is. The problem is typically your body should be able to process those out, take all the good stuff that's in vegetables, all the antioxidants, all the good, you know, nutrients, and get rid of the stuff that's not, oxalates, lectins, things like that. But when you're so close to the threshold, any one of those will set you off, right? So heavy metals are really bad, especially lead, cadmium, things like that. And I don't think enough people are aware that they're probably sitting with those. So again, I went to a functional medicine doctor eventually, right? Because I'm just like, look, I've tried to do this for 5 years. It's helping, but it's not, I'm nowhere near where I should be. He goes, dude, you're just one of the best people I've ever seen at watering the leaves, but your roots are dying. Like, I was like,
Ah,
oh, okay, that's a great analogy.
yeah.
I get it. I get it now. So, you know, you got to fix the roots, or it doesn't matter how much you water the leaves. So, in the contrast, right, because all the stuff I told you we cut out, he's like, I cannot believe how much lead you have in your body, but how great your environmentals are. I've never seen somebody this low in glyphosate, BPAs, you know, any of those kind of things. And I was like, all right, so something's working, right?
Okay. So again, for the people watching who aren't informed in this area, when
Yeah,
you're
sorry.
saying low BPAs, the other thing, what did those things do? Because you mentioned the scented things, right?
Yeah,
What are the cause and effects of those things in your environment? So if somebody has high BPAs or the other one
yeah.
that was a really long scientific word.
Well, glyphosates are just like a pesticide that they spray on plants, right? That's a pretty big buzzword one. But BPAs are just in plastics a lot of times. It the major thing is it's an endocrine disruptor, right? It messes with your hormones, right? And it throws them all over the place. So cutting those out, right? And, you know, if you've got high anxiety or, you know, as a guy, low testosterone levels, just a lot of things, prostate issues for guys, right, come from, you know, low testosterone levels in a lot of cases, right? Again, let me be clear because we are recording this. I am not a doctor.
No, you're like, I'm not
I've
giving medical
researched this
advice. I'm giving you
a lot,
advice
but
from my own right research.
yeah, let me just be abundantly clear. This is, I've read probably 2,000 plus studies in depth. Like I again, this is how I
Yeah.
am with things. But um yeah, there's a lot of downstream effects, but the main thing for a lot of those environmentals is endocrine disruptors.
So somebody's in their 20s or they're in their 50s. And again, just we completely got off track. The which
It's
I'm
important.
good.
It's important.
It is important.
Yeah, it's very important. A lot of people are not, you know, when it comes to success, your health is a big part of all of that, right? What
Right.
if you don't have your health? The people that are in bad health, they don't, they could have $1 billion and it's not, it doesn't mean anything to them, right?
Yeah. So if somebody in their 20s, 50s, it doesn't matter. If they thought, I want to improve my health, my environment, etc. When it comes to them, what would you suggest they go do? Like you mentioned a particular type of doctor.
Hmm.
Like if you starting at ground zero, knowing what you know, had to,
Hmm.
how would you systematically, what would be the things that you would recommend somebody to go do? And we know you're not a doctor.
Yeah, a functional medicine doctor.
Okay.
Um, can I do a shameless plug?
Sure.
Yeah, my guy, Dr. Morcom, Integrative Wellness FX. amazing, absolutely amazing, right? Very, very holistic Eastern medicine in the way that he fixes the issue, solving the root cause. I mean, that's really what functional medicine is the root cause, but using the cutting edge of medicine to be able to identify the problem, right? And so if you're really serious and have some serious problems and want to get them fixed, that's what I would do. If it's something you just want to improve your life, I mean, obviously work out, go to the gym, do something active is clear, but it's the same thing I told you earlier. Cut everything scented that's a fake scent out of your house as soon as possible, and don't eat anything that has an ingredient in there that your great grandma doesn't know. I mean, that is the simplest way. Now you can obviously dig a lot deeper into it. I have, but just those two things will significantly increase your well-being, right? And three things: workout, right? I mean, obviously exercise just makes everyone feel better.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, off that rabbit hole. I told you sometimes the good Lord just has us go down a path. Somebody may not
You
be
know,
ready.
I'm happy to talk about that stuff. That's
Yeah.
yeah, a big part about who we are. So happy to go down it.
Well, so now back on about you. Let's see. What has high ticket lead conversion taught you about the way people make decisions? And for people watching, high ticket lead conversion just means the price point. People
Hmm.
think a little differently on making a purchase when it's not a pack of gum and something, it's going to cost them more than an hour's worth of money, if you will, that they've made.
Mm.
So,
I might have an unpopular opinion here. I don't think a pack of gum or a $50,000 product's any different about why somebody makes a decision to do it, right? The
oh, for sure.
value, the value of what it is more than the cost of what it costs, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And the value to them. You know, I think the biggest thing that I've learned with selling, or I mean, and that's the thing with selling, right? People that aren't in sales, it's kind of it's got a very negative connotation. They think of a car salesman that's just
Oh, sure.
ramming a product down their throat, right? Sales is everything. Why do you sell your kids on why they shouldn't run across the street? They should look both ways. Selling your friends on why we should go to this restaurant instead of this restaurant. So, I mean, life is selling. Everything is selling. Communication is selling, right? Psychology, you can call it what you want, but it is. And the biggest thing is understanding the person's wants, desires, pains, who they are before you ever pitch a product, right? You need to know what moves and drives that person, right? We call it discovery in sales, discovering about somebody, right? But it's asking questions, right? Anybody that's been in sales, I know telling isn't selling, asking questions is selling. I mean, in a lot of cases, you could just sit here and ask somebody question after question after question after question after question, and eventually they'll sell themselves on it, right? Uh, if the product's right for their needs, right?
Right.
And I think you and I are a little outside the norm for salespeople. I'll tell somebody it's not for them, right? And you're the exact same, right? But if it does fit what they're trying to do, and they feel like people, and this is again, my parents, like I said earlier, extremely blue collar. There's very, very, and I mean this in the best way. I love my parents. I had a great childhood. They were super caring. There wasn't a lot of good advice from them that I've taken forward in my life, but there are a few nuggets, right? One of those, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. My mom used to
Right.
tell me that all the time. And that's where I see this, right? I mean, it's anything. Like if you, and I think that's the other thing. Like there's a lot of people in sales that fake it, right? They fake it in discovery. They fake asking questions just to get to an end goal. We call it commission breath, right?
Yeah.
I'm genuinely interested in people and circumstances, and I think that's why I've had such success at it.
Yeah.
Is because again, I'm hungry for knowledge. So somebody says, "Hey, I do this," right? I control the electrical grid. I'm just thinking of one, right? I control the whole electric grid for the East Coast. Wow. What does that entail? What is this? And next thing you know, we're talking about EMP blasts and how they protect against them and this and that. And we're down this rabbit hole. And some people are like, man, you're getting off track from the call. It's like, no, no, this person's going to turn around and be like, this person cares about who I am, what I do, but it's got to be genuine. I think that's the big thing,
And
right?
not for manipulation. I think that's
Correct.
really important. Um, you have to literally have the no pitch path, right? Which is the
Hmm.
philosophy of anti-selling, which does convert at a higher rate because somebody's already interested in the product or service that you have and thinks it may be the solution.
Hmm.
Okay, well then one, you have to discover and figure out what it is they're trying to solve. And you know your product well enough. Two, you know whether or not what you have will solve it and how.
Hmm.
And if
Yeah.
it doesn't, you have to have the integrity to say this isn't the solution.
Hmm.
And no other things out there that could be that you can suggest and point them to,
Hmm.
right? It's you know my philosophy on this. If I'm helping somebody interested in a product or service, I can wholeheartedly say I'm not trying to sell you anything if it starts to go into that moment. But
Hmm.
that takes a level of integrity and ethics. And those people tend to perform at the highest level, right? As far as their outcomes. So what would you say you've learned about I think you started to say earlier about the bubble gum. How do people make decisions? So you're looking at these high ticket environments. You've been
Hmm.
involved in a lot of them. What do you think high ticket has taught you about how people make decisions?
Does it solve a problem for them? Right. And again, my breath stinks. This bubble gum's 50 cents. I think the value of that bubble gum is worth the 50 cents to make sure my breath doesn't smell anymore. Right. It's the same thing. Does it solve a big enough problem for them? Right. And
Yeah.
that's creating a problem awareness for them, or
Mhm.
identifying if they have a problem. Again, back to discovery, asking questions, right? What's the pain point? Digging into that. Do you know, is there again, if the pain is strong, and we know this, right? And you know, because we've done this for so long, people will run from pain faster than they'll run towards pleasure, right? So something, you know, you can make something sound as great as possible, but it doesn't move people like pain does, right?
Yeah.
And again, a lot of what we were talking about earlier, some of the life change happens just because you get so much pain from it that you decide I have to move, right?
Mhm.
It's too uncomfortable. So when you get somebody problem aware of where they're at and provide a solution, as long as the value of solving that problem is higher than the cost eh, that it is, they'll buy it. It doesn't matter if it's $1 million. It doesn't matter if it's 50 cents, right? It's just they need to see the gap between where they are
Yeah.
and where they want to be, and it has to hurt enough, right? Again, we're not creating the hurt. We're not telling them something.
Right.
We're just helping them to identify it for themselves.
That is so good though. And I know we're over time. So I'm going to ask one last question, then we'll
Okay.
wrap up because you and I could do this for hours.
Of course. Yeah.
What would you tell someone who's building at a high level, but wants their family, values, and life behind the work to be just as strong as the work itself?
God, that's a tough one. I I struggle with this one every day, right? How do I not miss time with the family but build something spectacular for them? You know,
Yeah.
it's because balance is one of those things where I like to think of life as sprints and marathons, right? You cannot stop moving and you can't sprint forever, right? So it's taking, you know, maybe it's a couple weeks or a month or whatever the case is where, okay, I'm on a sprint, right? You let the family know, you plan time, right? Once a week, twice a week, where you have dedicated time and, you know, little bits throughout the days, and you sprint. Because really, it takes a Herculean effort to move some stuff sometimes. But once you get that launch done, then you can coast in a sense. I mean, coast, you're still getting, again, 1% better every day,
Right.
but it's a marathon, right? Life's a marathon. I think a lot of times, myself included, people will go, and heard the old adage, right? People drastically overestimate what they can do in 6 months to a year, and drastically underestimate what they can do in 5 to 10. Because I think people go, oh, takes people this long to get this done. I'm going to do this in a year, right? I'm going to sprint. And then they tire themselves out and they stop and then they backslide, right? And they
Yeah.
lose all the momentum that they created. And it's sprints and continuing to do a little bit at a time, right? So again, the balance question is a tough one, especially right now. You know where I'm at in life. I'm not happy with where I'm at in the sense of, again, it's like Akeem
The
Elijah
balance.
one: stay humble, stay hungry. Like
Right.
I'm very very blessed, very happy with where I am right now, but I'm nowhere near where I see myself in my brain, right? So um, how do you balance that, right? So time management. I mean, we could go into a whole nother. I know we're over time, but I used to be the most go with the flow, spontaneous guy, hated building schedules, never used a calendar. It just felt icky, right? And now it's you have to live and die by a
Yeah.
calendar and an organization, or you'll never get what you want to accomplish done in your life, right? So planning time, it feels weird planning date nights or planning, I'm going to spend this 2 hour block with the kids, right? It feels like, oh, I got to put it into a schedule just to be a good dad. But you'll sit and work. I mean, you know how
We
I am. I love working. So it's like,
Yeah, we schedule what's important in our lives, right?
mhm,
I think you hit the nail on the head with that. It's sprint, which means, okay, you got to have an intense week, an intense 2 weeks, intense 3 weeks. Your family is, giving grace to know that you're not going to be as present.
yeah,
But then at that time, you have to then prioritize into the mix the family,
yeah,
right? It's and that's where you were talking about more of a marathon, which means you're not going at that space. So sprint is like get here to there as fast as possible. A marathon, of course, you have to pace yourself or
yeah.
you keel over. Yeah. And then put it on your calendar. Eh, Otherwise, I cannot tell you how many people I personally coaching people and transitioning from W-2s to being entrepreneurs or business owners. They think I'm going to lock it down. The only thing that's important at that point, their priority is trying to get that thing built. And then the challenge is they get a year down the road and they've not been out with their spouse. And then they wonder why a marriage is falling apart.
Hmm.
So it's, yeah, definitely have to find a way to balance. But I think sprints with marathons is great advice. So
I got one last closing
yeah,
point on
please
that,
do.
right? There's two things. One, when I first came to Christ, this is my early 20s. I had a pastor that I adore. I mean, just one of the greatest guys. He was entrepreneurial and I mean, in a great way too. Not through the church like we see some of these, right? But he told me, he drew this out on a piece of paper. It was a pyramid, and he said, God's at the top, you and your wife are at the bottom. The closer you get to God, the closer you get to each other, right? So I think that's one of the that's been very very helpful, right? There's a lot of good stuff within that. It's
Yeah.
also, do you paint the vision well for your spouse? Again, you kids, it's a little bit tougher. I mean, my oldest is 4. I've got 3 kids, so painting a vision for them is a lot different than painting it for your spouse. If you guys are in line with where your life is going to go, right? If she has the vision that you do, or he has the vision that you do, and you guys are in line, some of the long hours or the days where you just don't see them the whole day make sense to them, right? And then they find a way to support you, because it's like, okay, cool, we're going, I know where we're going. I know why you're doing what you're doing. I know that you're planning time for us, but yeah, I mean, that is one of those things that if you have a different vision than your spouse does, it's going to be constant. It's going to be constant fighting. It's going to be constant stuff like that. So
Yeah.
make sure you're biblically rooted and that you both have the same vision for your futures, and that you discuss
Love
it
it.
often, right? I
Yeah.
mean, at least once a month, at the very least, right? And then bring them in on it, right? You don't need to tell them all the details. I found that out
Yeah.
the hard way, but bring them in on it, right? Here's where we're at. Here's some stuff that I'm struggling with. Here's some stuff that is working. Here's where we're at in the process. Just updates, just little things like that make all the difference.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for making the time. Those watching, subscribe to the podcast. We go live weekly and talk with people like Ryan who've built things and are willing to share their time with others. So we'll see you all next week. Ryan, thank you.
Absolutely, it's been a pleasure, T.